Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge, and today, yes, we got some things to go over from the Star Trek Online official X feed, so on screen. Yes, captains, before we get into this video, do us a huge favor, hit that like button. Also, if you're new here, welcome. Consider subscribing to our YouTube bridge, as we're always on the lookout for like-minded captains where we can share our love, our passion for Star Trek Online, but also things Star Trek. Now, with that said, here we go. Captains, we got some blogs to go over, some catching up to do. So as we normally do, we'll go over them, drop the ECs, and then at the end, give our conclusion. So first up here, the Theseus, commanded by Benjamin Sisko and Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing Star Trek comment, is coming to the Infinity Lockbox on Xbox and PlayStation next week. So this is for the console bridge and for my console caps. Now, we've already gone through this, but we'll just go quickly over here, have a look at the ship. Again, I personally will not be getting the ship. I have no connection to this whatsoever, and I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't tickle my fancy. It's nothing that I want in terms of visually, but this is the ship from the IDW comics. Now, we have gone over this. Again, this is the Theseus Miracle Worker Destroyer, and it is going to be in the Infinity Lockbox. There it is there. The design doesn't do anything for me, but again, this is, I think, good for Star Trek Online, that we're getting more ships, not only from what we see on screen, but also comics, and that maybe will leave room for the Stargazer, which is a Terran ship as well, that we still need to get. Ambassador from the TNG Mirror IDW comics, that would be interesting to see in game. Now, what I will do is link below in the description us already going through this. So, but as you can see here, it is from the comic, and again, something that I just can't get my attention in terms of wanting a ship, but it is going to be an option for you, caps. It'll be there for you. Again, I'll link the video that we go over this if you want to know more of our ECs there. So we'll leave it at that. So this is an interesting, we're going to double back on this. We'll leave this as the last thing there that we go over, but we'll go over this patch notes. So Star Trek Online will have extended maintenance on PC and regular maintenance on console tomorrow. So there you go, and you can find the PC patch notes here. There is no patch notes for console. So what is it? And it's interesting how it's linking to the ARC site. I don't know why, but it is there. So again, for August 1st, God, July just literally flew by. My caps are already half done with a year. That is insane. So resolved an issue that prevented captains from obtaining the trait Adaptive Tactical Algorithms when reaching Tier 5 of the Starship Mastery for the Cyclone Intel Patrol Escort. In addition, this fix resolves other issues that may have occurred to captains who attempted to respec their skills after the trait failed to unlock. So, caps, we know that there was an issue with the Cyclone, and it was literally causing a lot of chaos for captains. We didn't get it, thankfully, yet. We are planning to, in a better sale, probably get the bundle incomplete so that we get the 4 ships, because the 4th ship is the free Tier 6 ship coupon. But they finally fixed it, and it's great that it came out right away. So at least, caps, you can look forward to that. As of this video, this will be releasing before the maintenance is done. And if you're watching this after, then hopefully everything is fixed for you and you just have to respect that. Kind of annoying, it sounds like. I'd probably be annoyed myself, but at least they fixed it within reasonable time. So there is that. Now, next up here, resolved various ship customization issues with the Cyclone Intel Patrol Escort. Fixed Maelstrom variant to allow usage of new window types 0, 5, 6, and Galaxy types. Added Intel materials to the Cyclone. Added a variety of missing details to the Cyclone, including turrets and navigation lights. So I know that there's a lot of talk of this, and I will touch briefly on this. It would be nice that we didn't have things be released in a bug state. I guess though they released it because internally it's fine. Again, I don't know the relation when it comes from testing, whatever testing that Cryptic does, and then it transfer over to holodeck. But it is what it is. Again, I know it frustrates some captains, and all I try to do myself when it affects me in terms of the stuff that I go through or my nightly stuff is just be patient, because especially when it's on the radar, because usually they try to fix it, like I said, within reasonable time. So there are the patch notes. Again, the cyclone will be fixed. Next up here, now it says captains on console can save on keys, low-buy items, and everything you need to start your adventure. You click on that, well, you get a 404 error, and back to the Gearbox site here. So I don't know what that's all about. I just checked the PS4 there. There's nothing saying of the low-buy, so we'll just have to wait on that, caps. So we're going to double back here and leave this on the last blog that we'll go over here. So we all know that the Maelstrom torps got nerfed. I will say this because we did say this on the YouTube bridge there when we were live there just now, because as the video, I did this after the stream, but last night, that I wish they would not be so extreme in their nerfs, and that these things would be tested thoroughly, and or get players who know how to test these things to test it for them and just listen to their feedback, because I understand the frustration of those who buy chips for traits, for consoles, and then when they buy it, it gets nerfed. It can be very frustrating. Personally for me, and I've said this before, even before the Maelstrom Torp was actually nerfed, I didn't buy it for the torpedo. I bought it for the ships that it came on, which you can see there on screen, which is the Akira and the Valdor. 100% period point blank. I still used that Maelstrom Torp after the nerf, and I still got 800k, I think, on the Odyssey that we just showed you caps there in one of our recent videos. So I guess for me, I try to be as level-headed as I can be. If I want to use something though, I will use it. It doesn't matter how it does performance-wise, because it's, as I always mention in our build videos, I build my ships to get through the nightly things that we do. That's me. But I am starting to understand the frustration, the sometimes even anger of captains having bought things and then having things sort of devalued. You know, people purchase things for their ships to improve it, and then that whole rigmarole that happened last year with the Agony distributor, the neutronic eddies, and all of that, that was extreme. And that's why I go back to what I'm saying, I wish they weren't so extreme. If there's an easier way for them to fix things before it's released, I hope they do explore that, as opposed to getting all this backlash, all this sort of upfront anger, frustration from the player base, from the STO captains when it comes to things like this. Because if we're one thing, captains, regardless of where you are playing STO, we're all passionate about this game. We love it. But again, things just push our buttons, and one of the things that does really irritate a lot of people is all these nerfs and adjustments. But having said that, we'll go over this, and then, like I said, we'll kind of see what we can add to it in terms of our ECs. So the Maelstrom Torpedo has gone through some changes as of late. Here's systems designer Jonathan Herlish to talk about the why of those changes and what the future holds for the Maelstrom. Again, you get the link. You were back here in the Gearbox site, sure. So let's talk about the Maelstrom. The Maelstrom Torpedo has gone through some changes of late. Again, of course, that's the title. So greetings, captains. We'd like to share our thinking about where the Maelstrom is at. The follow-up changes is getting and how we're making these decisions. For context, the Maelstrom Torpedo is an experimental new type of weapon we introduced with the legendary Akira earlier this year. Our hope was that it would open a new style of deliberate torpedo usage that felt more like Star Trek. That is how I like to play this game, captains. 100% period point blank. I will dabble in the meta. I will dabble in other builds that people want me to be in. but I play Star Trek Online to try to make it feel like Star Trek. So, like I said, even when the torps were nerfed, I still use them because I loved the way they looked. I was okay with them being a slow fire charge rate because on screen a lot of the visuals you see is really slow firing, right? It's like a waltz in space. Taking Star Trek and Picard into account, well, that wasn't really a waltz when you had 100 ships firing at a starbase, but you know what I mean. For our first Maelstrom, we aimed high, seeking to learn just how long players were willing to defer gratification. A full 90 seconds for the Maelstrom Quantum Torpedo. That I didn't even feel. It was fine, because in my Alpha Strike, it was the first thing that fired, so full go. By and large, those efforts succeeded. We knew these torps would have an outsized impact on PvP and require careful tuning there. But the bigger issue was the torpedo's boss splatting in pub queues. While powerful ships melting bosses is not a new issue, one-shotting makes it much worse. These issues made it harder for others to enjoy the game. The torpedo starts charged, so it excelled in organized play designed to complete TFOs extremely quickly, but we saw this as a harmless upside. Lastly, the decision of when to fire the Maelstrom has been mostly about target availability and internal cooldowns, making the high moments a bit samey. Not bad, could be better. We set out to build a changeless that would target the bossing case and nudge PvP tuning in a healthier direction. We had two main options here. First, a very simple change to recharge time with a broader impact. A second, a more complex change that added mechanics to the weapon but was more precisely targeted. We made the simple change since we believe the torpedo simply didn't need to store so much power to do its job. The results were spicy. First, players enjoyed the longer charge paradigm more than the faster one unto itself, irrespective of damage. That was a huge surprise, and hints that this torp, far from being at extreme upper end of recharge time, might be closer to sweet spot for it. Second, the torpedo's performance suffered unacceptably in common cases, in particular torpedo builds. The way torpedo builds jungle the global cooldown and select specific torpedoes for specific jobs is far too perfect for the Maelstrom. If the Maelstrom isn't viable there, it's lost its essence. That brings us to the current change list, which will be shipping live soonish. Seriously, no ETA, Kale. We're still playing with it internally. But what we have now restores the damage of the Maelstrom against targets conditionally. Against cruisers and smaller, it deals its old damage. Against battleships, it's when the shield facing is at or near zero. Against bosses and players, it's when they're below half hull. Recharge time is now a bit faster than 90 seconds, since the torp should get some power back for its old damage becoming conditional. The idea here is to try to narrow the impact of the changes while emphasizing healthier gameplay patterns generally. The Maelstrom's premise makes it natural to fit for torpedo and mixed armament builds. We need to stop at one-shotting bosses, but we also insist it to be good in its role. That strategy applies to more than just a Maelstrom. When a fix to a problem harms the core viability of the power, we intend to use these kinds of follow-up changes. The Maelstrom is currently getting that treatment, but it wasn't the first to apply the new plan. Buffs to a couple of other familiar powers will have made their way live by this posting, with the Maelstrom changes following in a subsequent patch. On True, Jonathan Herlish, systems designer. So, it's very, very important for communication. We've always said that. And this is great. That is great that they're letting us know their process. And it's not like Jonathan hasn't stated on stream that they're looking into things or even when things go live, they're going to monitor it. He has said that, in fairness. But still, it sometimes feel like when things are changed, it's such an extreme change, and then it's like crickets. So I do wish that these blogs would be more present, and at the very end, they are listening to feedback, but it just feels like we have to push back so hard for them to do so. You know, I remember the backlash of those 4 consoles that got nerfed compared to this. And it was huge. It was massive. And it was crickets at first, but then of course, then they eventually addressed them. And still, till this day, they just made the recent change on the aggregating distributor. That was like a year later. So I feel like these things have to be addressed right away, especially when you have people spending real life money on this game. That is support for the game because we love it, but we, as a player base, I feel like we just have to have a little love back, and all we ask for is communication. And this does go a long way, in my opinion. So I'm thankful they did actually take this out there. Jonathan, I've said this on the stream there, and many times, when I hear him talk about systems, designs, stuff like this, I feel a connection to someone who does want to improve the game, and maybe sometimes just bogged down with, you know, scheduling in terms of preparing new content, upcoming content, and sometimes that when things are released, you know, it's hard for him to double back because this was what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the Maelstrom Torp was nerfed. So, but it's appreciated. Regardless, at the end, it's appreciated. And I hope this continues on at a very shorter window when things change, and or them trying to just really avoid the extreme nerfs or the extreme buffs that things are released at. So again, that's our just ECs, but I just hope that moving forward, things are tested more internally, but maybe by some sort of chance that they take more feedback from players directly before releasing things. And I'm gonna throw this in there, Caps, you know that we are good friends with Casual SAB, aka Spencer. He tests things a lot for the player base, and I'm very thankful that I have, you know, met him and have been able to rely on his knowledge in Star Trek Online. So why not, Cryptic, take advantage of that? Why not have someone like him tell you up front, this is going to be good, this is going to be bad, this is going to be okay? If you really want to know the impact, at least at the high end, I think talking, consulting with Spencer wouldn't be a bad thing. Just throwing that out there. So, Caps, that is the video. Thought we would throw that out there. We wanted to do this update video there before the patch went live, and again, throw our ECs down. So I'm still going to use Torpedo regardless. I'm still going to play the way that I play, but I know that this is going to be a welcome change, especially with the Cyclone, with the shipping released there in the state that it was. Took a while, or it didn't take a while. It was just released last week, but at least it's being fixed and addressed. So do us a favor, Caps, as always, hit that like button. Comment below, let us know your thoughts as well on this communication coming from them, good or bad, different. Let us know. We're interested to find out your thoughts. And of course, as always, we'll leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.